I woke up in the morning to loud snoring. My head was pounding so intensely that I could barely open my eyes. I found myself in a room on a double bed, completely naked. The sun was glaring through the window, and after lying there for about 3 minutes, I turned my head to the left and saw a girl sleeping next to me. It wasn't my wife, Laura, with whom I had been together for 4 years. I moved closer to the girl and turned her to the side in an attempt to stop the snoring. She appeared to be around 25, with chestnut hair, a well-maintained body, and, to my surprise, she was also lying naked. On her right hand, there was a snake tattoo. I couldn't figure out how I ended up in bed with her and struggled to remember what happened yesterday. I simply couldn't believe that I had cheated on my wife. After lying for another 10 minutes, I tried to wake up the girl. "Excuse me, who are you and why are we in bed together?" My head was splitting, and my throat was completely dry. "Ma'am, please, answer me." I made a second attempt, and finally managed to get words out. "Back off. Your time is up. Let me sleep." Saying this, the girl turned away from me and continued sleeping. I recalled the events of the previous day, specifically where I was supposed to be. My wife Laura has a close friend, Sarah, who was about to get married to Kevin. In celebration, bachelor and bachelorette parties were organized. I was against it because I hardly knew Kevin and didn't want to be in a strange company. I generally had few friends and disliked such gatherings. "Honey, I don't want to go. There will be many guys I don't know. What am I supposed to do with them? It's better if you go to your bachelorette party and I'll stay home." "How do you imagine that, dear? Sarah promised me that everything would be fine. And if you feel bored, you can leave. Go there for me, please. I want you to relax." What if I just end up being a hindrance there? No, you'll all be drinking alcohol, and it usually brings people closer. In the end, Laura persuaded me to go to the bachelor party with unfamiliar people. Although I didn't like the idea, I decided to do it for her. After all, I had nothing to lose, and making new acquaintances is always cool. It was hard to remember anything, but I tried and carefully got out of bed. My quest for finding my clothes in the room began, and all I found were jeans and some random t-shirt, nothing else. After getting dressed, I attempted to leave the room. The house was 2 stories high, rented specifically for the bachelor party, but I couldn't understand how a girl ended up at a bachelor party, and I even slept with her in the same bed. I barely made it down to the common area, where all the guys were. A total of 8, including Kevin, as he was the only one I could remember among them. I noticed sideways glances, but I continued descending when suddenly Kevin spoke up. "Oh, our sinner is awake. How was your night, buddy?" I ignored his words. My throat was parched, and what I really wanted was water. I saw a bottle on the table and reached for it when Kevin suddenly took it away. "No, no, no, buddy. It's not going to work like that. Explain to all of us what you pulled off yesterday." "What are you talking about, Kevin? Who is this girl?" "Oh, so that's how you're going to talk, as if you don't remember. Well, we're going to remind you now because you can ruin my day off, and I actually have a wedding tomorrow." "I need water." I couldn't care less about his words. I wanted to drink and didn't think about anything else. Kevin approached me, smoothly sat me down on the sofa and sat next to me. "Do you want water?" "Yes." "Okay. But before giving it to you, explain something to us. Why did you invite your lover to my party yesterday?" At that moment, I suddenly sobered up and asked, "What lover? Guys, what are you talking about? Are you still pretending? Let me remind you, we were sitting and playing board games, Everything was fine, and we were planning to go to the pool. I don't know what happened to you, but you stepped aside and called someone. An hour later, a girl showed up in our house, whom you introduced as your lover. You bragged that your wife knows nothing about it, and then you went to a room on the second floor with her. Kevin pulled out his phone from his pocket and played a video showing someone having sex under the covers, with the face of that girl visible. I was in absolute disbelief. I couldn't remember anything, and I never had a lover. The only thing I could recall at that moment was arriving at this country house, unpacking our stuff, taking out board games, opening a can of beer and drinking it. The next day, I woke up in bed with a girl I didn't know. Dude, this is awful, what you've done. You understand that you set me up. You understand that I have a wedding tomorrow, and there was some unknown girl at my bachelor party. If Sarah finds out, learns that I hid this fact, I don't want to betray you, but I also don't want to hide anything from my wife, and you're putting me in a difficult position. I sat silently, still wanting to drink badly, and my head was not processing much. Kevin made me an offer. I'm willing to risk my future marriage and save you. I won't tell my girl and send her the video if you bring me $5,000. Deal? Screw you. I didn't do anything like that. At that moment, two of his buddies rushed towards me and grabbed me, while others sat and chuckled. Are you sure? You have an hour to bring me the money, or my fiancée will see this recording, and then your wife, Laura, will see it too. I had no choice, and I went to look for the money. I couldn't believe what I might have done there, but on the other hand, I absolutely didn't remember what happened yesterday and couldn't confidently speak about it. I began to doubt everything and had no understanding of what was happening. I remembered that I had some cash in my car, just in case. It was fortunate that I had the keys to my car in my pants, so I headed towards it. In the car, I found only $2,700, and I realized that it wasn't much. But I had no choice. We were in a country house, and there was no nearby ATM to withdraw money from my card. So I went back to the house, gave them the cash, and offered to transfer the rest online. However, I realized I didn't have my phone. I went searching for it throughout the house, while those guys sat there laughing at me. During the search, I went into the bathroom, drank water straight from the tap. I think I drank about 3 liters, and after that, I felt better and resumed searching for my phone. In 30 minutes, I went through the entire house but couldn't find it, and of course, no one helped me. Have you seen my phone? No. I lost hope and offered my watch, a birthday gift from Laura worth around $10,000. Kevin took the watch without hesitation, and then subtly hinted that I should leave the house. I went straight home, my mind in complete chaos. I had no idea what was happening. I couldn't believe that I could betray my wife. It was an obvious setup, something I never expected. When I arrived home, Laura wasn't there. There were some documents and a note on the kitchen table. The documents were divorce papers, and I was stunned. Taking the note, I began to read. Edward, I never expected such betrayal from you. You ruined my evening yesterday and probably my whole life. I trusted you, thought everything was fine between us, but it turns out you had a lover. Don't bother coming to Sarah and Kevin's wedding. It's pointless. After the wedding, we'll begin the divorce process, and I hope you won't resist, as the evidence of your infidelity is clear. I honestly loved you and wanted to build a happy marriage with you, and you spat in my face, so foolishly. I hope this teaches you something. Don't try to contact me. I don't want to see you. My lawyer will get in touch with you and you can live in the house. I won't return. Goodbye. I read this note about 10 times and couldn't believe my eyes. In a burst of emotions, I got into the car and drove back to the country house to talk to Kevin and find out what was going on. I was driving very fast and recklessly, lost control, and at high speed, the car went off the road, colliding heavily with a tree. I woke up in the hospital and there was no one around me. I was completely alone, feeling like I might have died. I found a button and called for the doctor, and in a few minutes, a tall, bearded man entered my room. "Mr. Edward, I'm glad you're alive. How are you feeling?" I started a conversation with the doctor. He informed me that I had been in a coma for 3 days after an accident, where I veered off the road and crashed into a tree. He mentioned that my wife had visited me and asked to notify her when I regained consciousness. I had a severe concussion, and my leg was in a cast. I had survived serious injuries, but it no longer mattered to me. I just wanted to see my wife. 2 days later, Laura visited me with her lawyer. I was glad to see her. She didn't even inquire about my well-being. Instead, she expressed her contempt for my decision to drive, while not in my right mind. She handed me a piece of paper that I was supposed to sign. Before signing, I wanted to express my opinion, but she refused to listen. After signing the paper, she left the room, and I was left in complete solitude. Each day dragged on. I didn't even have a phone to call anyone. My mom couldn't visit me because she was elderly and lived far away, so I spent my days lost in my thoughts. I couldn't understand why Kevin decided to betray me, but then I thought that I might have indeed cheated on my wife, though I honestly couldn't remember how it happened. I hoped to talk to Laura and make things right, but she was firm in her decision, and I didn't push her. After spending 8 days in the hospital, I was discharged and started treatment. I went to my empty house and, as a first step, bought alcohol. I hadn't been a heavy drinker before. I could only drink on certain occasions, but now I drank to numb my pain. I had to leave from work until the cast was removed, and during that time I drank every day. After work, I continued drinking at home. After a month and a half, the court proceedings began, and Laura wanted to divorce me for marital infidelity. I silently agreed to everything. I was no longer sure if I had been faithful. Laura wanted to leave me with nothing, wanting to divide all our joint property, although initially she didn't plan to do that. I had to rent a small room somewhere with just a sofa, an old TV, a refrigerator, and a table, and I had to live in those conditions. After 5 months, I was fired from my job for absenteeism, as every evening I drank until I passed out. But I wasn't afraid. I didn't care. I still had some money from selling the house, and I spent it all on alcohol and rent. My life lost all meaning. I couldn't remember the last time I had smiled. I was in a completely losing position. One evening, while lying on the sofa, I decided to check Laura's social media. I saw her new photos from a vacation in Bali, shopping, and so on. She looked happy. I didn't know if she had someone new in her life. I scrolled through all her photos and then decided to check her friends list. I went to Sarah's page, Laura's friend. There were wedding photos on her page, with Kevin, his friends, and in some shots, Laura. But one photo raised many questions. In one of the photos, Laura was hugging a guy, but his face was not visible. I remembered him by his white suit, which stood out from the general background. And in another photo I could see his face. It was Scott, Laura's ex-boyfriend, whom she dated before me. Scott was a jerk. They had been together for 5 years, and Scott never proposed to her. Laura decided to leave him when he dared to raise his hand against her, but that was in the past. I couldn't understand what he was doing at Laura's friend's wedding, which raised a lot of questions and some suspicions for me. I refrained from making any conclusions and started drinking again. A couple of days later, I decided to hire a girl, something I did often because I didn't have the energy to meet someone new. Quickly satisfying my primal needs, scrolling through profiles, I came across a girl who caught my interest. Her alias was Catherine, and she looked quite young, so I decided to call her. I had no idea how much my life would change after that call. I arranged with Catherine for her to come to my place for the night. I cleaned up the room as best as I could, at least throwing away all the alcohol bottles and putting on fresh sheets. Catherine came to me, took a shower, and we got down to business. She had chestnut hair, brown eyes, and her body was well maintained. It was one of the expensive service, and I felt ashamed that I had called such a delicate girl to my pigsty. But most importantly, I was sober. We engaged in intimacy, and I decided to experiment a bit by taking her hand, and was horrified. On her right hand, there was a snake tattoo, the same one I saw on that fateful day. I recoiled from this girl. I was shaken. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Your tattoo? How long have you had it?" "About a year ago. Does it bother you?" "We need to talk." I felt as if I sobered up. There was hope for something in my mind. I started questioning Catherine about her life. "What's wrong with you? Why all these questions? Do you remember about 8 months ago when you were at a party, invited to a house with only men? You woke up in the morning and some guy started waking you up, and you sent him away." "I remember." "Do you remember me? Can you tell me what happened that evening?" "I was cold. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was blonde, and I liked him. I came, there were 9 guys. One of them was already passed out, and the rest were normal. I couldn't understand why they called me there for most of the evening. I just sat with them and played board games. Then we went to the pool, and later I went upstairs with the blonde guy, and he took advantage of me. His friends came into the room and teased us." "Was the fair-haired guy named Kevin by any chance?" "Maybe yes, maybe no. I need to see his face." I took out my phone and showed her a photo of Kevin, and she confirmed that it was him, and my world crumbled. So it wasn't me on the video, it was Kevin, and he called Catherine to frame me. But why? For a couple of $1,000s? Or did he just want to ruin my marriage? I couldn't understand why someone would set me up like this. "Do you remember me there?" "Honestly, no." I stood up and went to shave off all the facial hair, then returned to Catherine. "Now recognize me. You're the guy who was blackout drunk?" I confirmed that it seemed that way, and Catherine became my hope to get to the truth. I asked Catherine if she remembered any distinctive features of Kevin's body, and she said he had 3 scars on his chest, which she remembered vividly. I proposed a partnership to Catherine, and she agreed. I would pay her hourly, and I shared my entire story with her, explaining what had happened to me. She was horrified and showed sympathy towards me. The next day I began looking for the best lawyer who could crush my opponent for defamation. That turned out to be Walter Palmer, an expensive lawyer, but I didn't care. I wanted justice. Because of this incident, I lost my wife, job, and all acquaintances turned away from me. When I walked down the street, everyone looked at me with suspicion. They thought I was a shameless cheater who betrayed his wife and was also an alcoholic. I wanted justice to prevail. Mr. Palmer spent the whole day with me, explaining all the details. He listened to my version, where I suspected that Kevin intentionally planned everything to take some money and ruin my life. Mr. Palmer immediately refuted this, stating it was a very weak motive, and things were not so straightforward. He emphasized that we needed to look into the hospital, specifically to the chief doctor, because on the night of the party I lost consciousness and was blackout drunk, which meant someone could have spiked my drink, and the doctor might intentionally withhold information. The next day, Mr. Palmer and I went to the hospital, requesting my medical records, but found nothing. We asked a nurse to guide us to the chief doctor, but she said he was busy, so we used some manipulation and eventually got led to the chief doctor. "Oh, Edward, you look great. How have you been?" Mr. Palmer immediately threw a folder with documents on the table, containing accusations against Mr. Rasmussen, the chief physician, for intentionally withholding blood test results from the patient. Mr. Rasmussen reviewed the documents and began to deny the allegations. Mr. Palmer then started pressuring the doctor, stating that he would likely lose his position, but could mitigate his punishment by cooperating. However, the doctor refused to cooperate and continued to deny everything. He denied intentionally hiding my test results from me, but after 15 minutes, Mr. Rasmussen confessed to the crime. He claimed that a potent sedative was found in my blood, and he retrieved all the necessary papers from his safe. Mr. Rasmussen began to justify himself, saying that immediately after the accident, he intended to inform my legal representative, Laura, but Laura asked me not to reveal anything and paid the doctor $50,000 for my silence. Mr. Rasmussen started to express remorse for withholding such a serious fact, but Mr. Palmer said that he would still face consequences, and it would be better for him to cooperate with us. We left the office, and Mr. Palmer voiced his worst suspicions. If I had any doubts before, I am now 100% sure that your ex-wife orchestrated all of this to divorce you. She could face real prison time for this. And are you willing to go all the way against those who participated in this? I agreed and withdrew the money from the ATM. Mr. Palmer said we needed to hire a private detective to gather fresh information about Laura's life. He called his acquaintance to start the work, and Mr. Palmer and I moved on to the next stage. There were 10 people at the bachelor party, including me and Catherine, so our first task was to get everyone on our side. To achieve this, we needed to talk to the leader, Kevin. We hired another private detective to track and provide information about Kevin, including where he worked and when he returned home. In a couple of days, we received all the necessary information and photos. Among them were a couple of interesting pictures where Kevin was kissing a woman who didn't look like his wife. I realized this could work to our advantage. We learned Kevin's car number and, along with Catherine, started waiting for him after work. Kevin came out of the main building and headed towards his car, encountering us. "You two, get away from my car." Wait, do you not remember me?" "Why should I remember you?" I said. "Get away from my car." I realized that a direct approach wouldn't work, so I decided to show him compromising photos with his lover. Kevin looked at them for a few seconds, and it was evident his face turned red with anger. He tried to grab the photo, but I didn't let him. Then he attacked me and landed a few blows, 1 to the face and 2 to the stomach. At that moment, Mr. Palmer appeared from around the corner, capturing everything on camera, and Kevin realized he was in trouble. "Guys, please don't send this to my wife." I looked at this pathetic man, and my lawyer explained to him what was happening. Kevin revealed much more information than the doctor. He explained that his wife Sarah asked him to help her friend Laura, who wanted to divorce her husband, meaning me. He did everything as she told him, and Laura paid them $20,000, which they spent on their wedding. He tried to justify himself, saying they urgently needed money then, and it seemed like a great opportunity. He never thought it could ruin someone's life, He also confirmed that he was the one in the video having sex with Catherine. Hearing all this, I smiled because the entire conversation was recorded on a dictaphone. In the end, Kevin agreed to cooperate against Laura, stating he would do anything as long as Sarah remained unaware. He was very naive. Right at that moment, all the photos of him with his lover and the recorded conversation were sent to his wife's email. We no longer needed him because he would face criminal charges. The next day, we received information from a private detective about Laura. It turned out she was currently living with her ex-boyfriend, Scott. We also obtained photos, and I downloaded the wedding pictures where Laura was seen embracing a man. At that time, we were still husband and wife, so we could present it in court as infidelity while her actual husband lay in a coma. For another day, Mr. Palmer prepared all the documents for filing my case and gathered all the evidence. The next day, it all went to court. I accused the chief doctor of withholding my blood test results, Kevin and his friends of defaming me and spiking the solution, and Laura of humiliating, defaming, and cheating on me with the help of money. I felt like I was in a detective movie. A couple of days later, Kevin contacted me and began threatening me, saying he would kill me for ruining his marriage. I recorded the conversation and sent it to the court. In the end, Kevin was imprisoned until the trial was over. After a month and a half, the trial took place. Thanks to my expensive lawyer, everything was ready for legal proceedings. It was amusing to watch these three try to slander each other. My lawyer spared no one and provided all the necessary evidence. Throughout this ordeal, Catherine stood by my side, never leaving me. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. All three faced prison time for committing crimes against me. Each of them paid me a substantial compensation, allowing me to return to a normal life. I had no sympathy for them being imprisoned. It was well deserved. Laura acted like a true monster. If I hadn't found the strength to uncover the truth, these people would likely have lived unpunished, while I would be sitting in my small room, poisoning myself with alcohol. After all legal proceedings were over, with the significant amount of money I received, I decided to move to another city, and Catherine wanted to come with me. So we moved. We now live together in my new home. Catherine got a job as a chef in a pizzeria. As it turned out, she had a culinary education. I am proud of her for choosing the right path. We are not in a traditional relationship. If she decides to leave, I won't object or be upset, and Catherine understands me, and I understand her. Catherine is still the person who helped me uncover the truth, and I am excessively grateful for her support during the chaos in my life. I managed to find a new job, so I had something to occupy myself with. This situation did not close me off. On the contrary, I became more open and sought new acquaintances and friends. I went through a period in my life when I had no one, and now I understand how crucial it is to have a close person by your side. Thank you for listening to my story.